Emily Parker was late, not fashionably late, not, oh, I'm just a minute away late, but the kind of late where your stomach twists into knots and your career flashes before your eyes like a poorly edited PowerPoint slideshow. She had accepted a new position, temporary assistant at Carter and Vale Enterprises, and today was her first day, the kind of day you want to nail. But New York had other plans. Rain poured down in thick sheets as Emily stood on the curb, clutching a broken umbrella that resembled a dying bat more than a sheltering device. She tapped furiously at her phone, confirming her ride just before the screen flickered and died, the battery surrendering its final breath. Seriously? She muttered, shoving it into her soaked purse. She scanned the street, heart pounding, mascara probably running, umbrella practically useless. That's when a sleek black car pulled up at the red light, same model as her app had shown. Close enough. Emily didn't hesitate. She yanked the passenger door open, leaned in, and said breathlessly, "Thank God you're here. I'm running super late. Go, 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 step on it." The man behind the wheel didn't move. He turned his head slowly toward her. Impeccably dressed, in a charcoal gray suit, crisp white shirt, and a navy tie, his face calm, eyes unreadable, the type of man who could intimidate a boardroom with a single glance. But Emily was on a roll. I know, you don't even need to say it. Traffic, GPS rerouting, probably a weird detour through Brooklyn. But please, just turn right after that cafe with the French name. Oh, did you know they charge $9 for a croissant? 9. I'm still chewing the regret. He blinked. Once. Then again. Slowly. I'm sorry, he began, voice deep and composed. Oh no, no apologies needed. I get it. Crazy day. My alarm didn't go off. I burnt my tongue on my coffee. And, to top it off, look at this. She hiked up the hem of her pants just enough to show two dramatically mismatched socks, one with Christmas penguins, the other covered in tacos. This is my life right now. The man remained silent. The light turned green. He drove. Emily exhaled, melting into the leather seat, which smelled faintly of new money and sophistication. You're a lifesaver. Seriously, I didn't get to confirm your name because, well, dead phone. But the timing, wow, it's like fate, like the beginning of a romantic comedy, except wetter. And without the comedy. Yet. No reply. She glanced sideways. You don't talk much, huh? Mysterious driver type? I like it. Very Netflix noir. Bet you've had some weird passengers, right? You should write a memoir. Confessions of a Silent Uber Driver. Bestseller. Guaranteed. Still nothing. Just the occasional twitch of his jaw. This car is too nice, by the way, she added. No offense, but if this is your actual Uber gig, you're overqualified. Smells like someone who owns stocks and laughs at people who say, crypto. As they approached the massive glass structure of Carter and Vale, Emily straightened up, trying to fix her rain-soaked hair. Can you drop me off at the side entrance? Less chance of anyone seeing this fashion emergency. I should have bribed a makeup artist instead of eating that $9 croissant. The car rolled to a smooth stop. Precision parking. Thanks a million, she said, grabbing her bag. 5 stars. Heck, 10, if that was a thing. She smiled at him one last time, but he was already staring straight ahead. Unreadable. Emily jumped out and hustled into the building, shoes squeaking against the marble floors. She made it to the elevator just in time thanks to a guy who held it open. You almost missed the big meeting, whispered a coworker inside. The new CEO's presentation. I know. Don't even ask. Uber, traffic, disaster. She tried to blend into the crowd as they reached the top floor. Inside the sleek conference room, Emily slid into a seat, catching her breath. She tried to ignore the stares. Her socks peeked out. Her blouse was missing a button. She probably looked like a wet intern who lost a bet. Then came the knock on the door. The room hushed. The coordinator entered. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the new CEO of Carter and Vale Enterprises, Mr. Liam Carter. And in walked the man from the car. Impeccable suit, perfectly tailored, the same unreadable gray eyes. Emily's mouth went dry. The folder in her hand slipped and hit the floor with a smack. Everyone turned. Liam Carter walked to the front. His eyes scanned the room. They found her. "I hope my arrival didn't catch anyone off guard," he said, pausing just long enough to make it sting. "Especially those who confused me with their Uber driver." Silence. Pin-drop silence. Emily wished the floor would open and swallow her. He smiled slightly. Just enough to say I remember everything. And he was definitely enjoying this. She had ordered the CEO to step on it, and now she worked for him. "Welcome to your first day, Emily Parker." Emily sat frozen in her seat, praying her chair would develop rocket boosters and launch her through the ceiling. The words, "especially those who confused me with their Uber driver," replayed in her head like a cruel remix. Around her, whispers started to slither like vines through the conference room. She avoided everyone's eyes. Her socks, which were still one penguin, one taco, suddenly felt like spotlights on her ankles. Of all the black cars in Manhattan, Liam Carter continued his introduction with polished confidence, speaking about strategy, innovation, and growth. But all Emily could hear was her heartbeat pounding in her ears like a marching band on Red Bull. She barely noticed the applause when he finished. As people began to rise and shuffle out, Emily clung to the hope that she could slip away unnoticed. But fate had other plans. "Miss Parker," Liam said smoothly, his voice cutting through the chatter like a scalpel. She froze mid-step. "Yes, sir?" She turned, her smile so forced it could have cracked glass. He stepped toward her, hands clasped behind his back. "I trust your ride this morning was comfortable?" She gulped. "Very. One of the best Ubers I've ever taken. 5 stars, possibly 6. The ghost of a smirk tugged at his lips. "Good to know. Some drivers deserve more than stars. Maybe a promotion." She laughed nervously. "I'm not sure he's interested in corporate advancement." Liam said, tilting his head ever so slightly. "We'll talk later, Miss Parker. I have ideas." Ideas? What did that mean? Promotion? Punishment? Permanent exile to the basement records room? Back at her desk, Sophie was already waiting like a cat who'd seen a mouse fall into a blender. "What was that?" she whispered, eyes gleaming. Emily slumped into her chair. "You saw? Saw it?" "I felt it. The tension was cinematic. He looked at you like he knew your coffee order and your blood type." Emily groaned. "I got into his car, told him to drive me like it was Fast and Furious, intern drift. I ranted about croissants. I showed him my socks, Sophie." "My socks." Sophie snorted and clapped a hand over her mouth. "You're a legend. We've worked here for months and no one knows our names. You, first day and your headline material." Emily put her face in her hands. "Do legends get fired before lunch?" "I don't think you're getting fired," Sophie said with a knowing grin. "Not with the way he looked at you." Emily wanted to disappear. She buried herself in fake spreadsheets, pretending to work while her mind staged a one-woman panic concert. But then the phone on her desk rang. Sophie grabbed it. "Projects department? Yes, of course." She covered the mouthpiece and whispered, "It's him. He wants to see you. Now." Emily's soul left her body. "Tell my family I love them," she said, grabbing a notebook like it was a shield. She knocked on his office door with the fear of someone about to be launched into unemployment. "Come in," Liam said from inside. She stepped in, trying not to trip over her own feet. Liam stood by the window, hands in his pockets, staring out at the city like a brooding prince. "You asked to see me?" He turned. "Yes, please, have a seat." She sat down, posture stiff, hands clasped so tight her knuckles turned white. "First," Liam said, "I want to thank you for this morning's transportation." Emily's eyes widened. "Sir, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean my phone died. The car was the same. I thought..." He raised a hand, cutting her off with a calm, "Relax." She fell silent. "You made an impression," he continued. "Not many people would be that bold." "Desperate," she corrected. "That's the word. I was late. It was raining. My socks didn't match. I was operating purely on caffeine and chaos." Liam chuckled, a low, quiet sound that caught her completely off guard. "You also demonstrated quick thinking," he said. "You gave clear directions, spoke confidently, even if it was about pastry prices, and trusted your instincts. You noticed the details." Emily blinked. "Are you praising me?" He leaned forward, resting his arms on the desk. "I'm evaluating you. It's different. Do I pass?" "We'll see," he said. "I have a task for you." She braced herself. "Okay. What kind of task?" "We're expecting a group of investors Friday. I want you to oversee final floor inspections, lighting, coffee machines, minor details. Make sure everything's perfect. I can alert maintenance. No, I want you to do it. Personally." She squinted. "Because you trust me? Because I want to see what happens when I drop you into a situation with no GPS." She narrowed her eyes. "This is a trap. Let's call it a trust exercise. Like a team-building fall?" "Exactly, only less physical pain." "Hopefully," she exhaled. "Fine, but I want a map, a flashlight, and possibly a therapist afterward." "Deal. Start on the 10th floor. Maintenance will meet you there." She stood. "One more thing, Mr. Carter?" He looked up. That croissant really was $9. His mouth twitched. "Still outrageous." Emily left the office with her head spinning. Back at her desk, Sophie looked at her like she'd just returned from a battlefield. "Alive?" she asked. "For now," Emily said, collapsing into her chair. "But I think he's testing me. Or flirting. He's a CEO. He's human. Barely." And yet, Emily couldn't help but feel something shift. Maybe it was the way he smirked. Maybe it was the way he didn't fire her. Or maybe it was just that, for the first time in her life, chaos didn't feel like the end of the world. It felt like the start of something. Emily stood on the 10th floor surrounded by blinking lights, buzzing vending machines, and two maintenance workers who looked like they hadn't slept in a week. She held a clipboard in one hand and a half-finished cup of coffee in the other, both of which were rapidly losing their usefulness. "Miss Parker," one of the workers called out, "printer in room B's jammed again. Says it's printing, but it's just groaning like an old man." "On it," she said with a sigh. By now she was elbow-deep in the corporate underworld. Flickering hallway lights, temperamental coffee makers, and suspicious carpet stains no one wanted to investigate. She'd already noted 3 broken bulbs, 2 suspicious stains, 1 vending machine that only dispensed Funyuns, and a cappuccino machine that hissed like a cobra when you touched it. Her once white blouse had a streak of paint on it, from brushing against a half-finished wall, and her heels clicked with the tired rhythm of someone who needed a nap and a better career path. Just as she was scribbling, "Replace light fixture," emits depressing flicker, Sophie's voice rang out from the end of the hall. "Emily! Emergency!" Emily looked up, immediately alert. "What now? Another haunted printer?" "No, him, Liam. He's coming down to check progress." Emily swore under her breath and shoved her clipboard under one arm. She hurriedly wiped her face, tried to smooth her hair, and failed at both. When she turned the corner into room B, Liam Carter was already standing there. And of course, her blouse was caught in the edge of the jammed printer. He raised a brow as she tried and failed to tug herself free. "Need assistance?" he asked, voice perfectly neutral. "I need a new career," she muttered. He took 2 steps forward and gently freed the fabric from the machine without a word. Emily stood up, brushing her hands down her front like that would erase the moment. "Status update?" he asked. "Well," she began, straightening. "Coffee on the 9th floor tastes like disappointment. 2 printers are groaning, and the front reception carpet smells like your grandmother's attic. So, progress." Liam chuckled. Your honesty continues to impress me. I call it dramatic efficiency. He looked over her notes with a thoughtful expression. You're doing better than expected. Was that a compliment or a warning? I haven't decided. By the time Emily made it back to her desk that afternoon, she was exhausted, but strangely satisfied. She'd survived. She'd fixed a printer. She hadn't tripped. And she hadn't cried in a storage closet, not once. She opened her laptop, ready to return to the fake spreadsheet she kept as a decoy. Then she saw it. An envelope with her name on it, sitting squarely in the center of her desk. Inside, a handwritten note in Liam's neat, structured handwriting. Emily, I need you to review the annual financial report. Apparently, it's gone missing from the shared folder. I'm counting on you. L.C. Her mouth fell open. The annual financial report? That was top-level stuff. Spreadsheet Olympus. Mess that up and the company might collapse into a pile of budgetary errors and canceled health plans. She turned to Sophie, holding the note like it was a live grenade. He wants me to review the annual report. Sophie's eyes widened. That's like top tier, vault access, elite level. I know, Emily whispered. If I mess up one decimal, someone loses their dental coverage. If you get it right, he's going to throw another impossible task at you. He's testing my limits. He's testing your sanity. Emily took a deep breath and rolled up her sleeves. 3 hours later, she had flagged inconsistencies, corrected 3 decimal point errors, realigned graphs, and, disturbingly, discovered that someone had labeled a snack budget under miscellaneous acquisitions. There was literally a line item called chocolate morale boost. This is an amusement park for accountants, she muttered, eyes burning. As if summoned by her exhaustion, Liam Carter appeared beside her desk with all the stealth of a corporate ninja. Survived the report? Barely. I lost faith in humanity halfway through, she replied. Also, someone's funneling money into M&Ms. Noted, he said, amused. Come to my office. Emily followed, her legs moving on autopilot. Inside, Liam closed the door and gestured to a chair. What did you think? He asked. Some of those numbers look like they were created by people who were trying to launder monopoly money. The graphs were less organized than my sock drawer. He nodded slowly. Agreed. That's why I want you to sit in on the next round of financial department meetings. Her jaw dropped. You want me there? In the room? You don't have to speak, just observe, and provide your own report at the end of each week. Is this a promotion? It's an evaluation. I'm still waiting for my croissant rating, by the way. 5 stars, he said, and a new pair of penguin socks. She smiled, tired but satisfied. Maybe the chaos had a purpose after all. By the end of the week, Emily felt like she'd run a marathon in heels. But she was different now. There was an energy in her steps, even when she was carrying broken staplers to IT. She felt like she mattered, Sophie noticed. You're enjoying this, she said one morning. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. You keep complaining, but your eyes have that crazy, challenge-accepted glow. Emily tried to deny it. But even she couldn't stop the small smile that crept in whenever she remembered Liam saying you're doing better than expected. Maybe the tests weren't punishments. Maybe they were invitations. To what? She didn't know. Yet. For most employees at Carter and Vale, Friday night was just another company event. Networking in uncomfortable shoes, listening to strategic speeches, and pretending to enjoy tiny appetizers with names longer than the ingredients list. But for Emily Parker, it was a high-stakes mission disguised as a gala dinner. Not because of the investors, not even because of the canapes, because he had invited her. Liam Carter, the man she'd mistaken for an Uber driver, the CEO who threw challenges at her like corporate dodgeballs, the one who, without saying it outright, had begun to occupy the space between professionalism and something unspoken. Earlier that morning, she received a crisp email. Emily, investor dinner tonight, 8 p.m. Dress accordingly. I'll send the address. You know how to improvise. LC. Is this a trap? She asked Sophie, pacing in the break room. It's a dinner, Sophie said, sipping her third iced coffee of the day. A very fancy, potentially flirty dinner. Emily looked at the email again. Dress accordingly. What did that mean? Smart? Glamorous? Emotionally impenetrable? At 7:58 p.m., she arrived at the address Liam had sent, an upscale restaurant with soft music drifting into the New York air. Her heart thudded like a warning as she stepped out of the car and saw him waiting inside, dressed in a tailored charcoal suit, hair brushed back with maddening perfection. "You're early," she said. "I circled the block," he replied. "Battle strategy." She let out a breathy laugh. "Nervous strategy." He offered his arm. She hesitated, then took it. It felt natural and terrifying at the same time. Inside, they were seated at a corner table near a tall window overlooking the skyline. Liam leaned in slightly. "Target in 3, 2. Before he could finish, a woman in a striking red dress materialized like a rom-com villainess. Her perfume hit before her voice. "Liam, darling," she said, placing a manicured hand on his shoulder. "You didn't tell me you'd be bringing company." "Delaney," Liam said smoothly. "This is Emily Parker, my assistant." Emily extended her hand. "Hi, nice to meet you." Delaney gave her a slow once-over. "Interesting," Emily smiled. "It's a theme tonight," Liam added. "Emily's been helping with our integration strategy." "The strategy seems younger," Delaney said, sipping wine. "Young, bold," Emily replied, "and wears socks with themes." Liam choked slightly. Emily didn't flinch. Throughout dinner, Delaney asked thinly veiled questions, while Emily parried with polite sarcasm. Each time Delaney leaned too close to Liam or tried to monopolize the conversation, he looked to Emily. She took the cue without missing a beat. "Mr. Carter," she interrupted once. "Your tie seems off-center." "Mr. Carter," she added later, "we need to verify the backup folder for tonight's reports. Urgently." By dessert, Delaney was visibly annoyed and excused herself, muttering something about follow-up emails. Liam exhaled the moment she left. "You were perfect." "I'm an improvisation machine," Emily said. "But I'm billing you for emotional labor. I'll pay you in chocolate and corporate secrets." They laughed. The tension that lingered between them for weeks now softened, bent into something warmer. As they walked toward the exit, Liam slowed. "Thank you for tonight." It was fun, stressful, chaotic, the full Parker experience. He turned to her. "You have that effect, a mix of chaos and solutions." She looked up at him. "And you're the hardest man to figure out." "Keep trying." Before she could respond, a voice rang out behind her. "Emily?" She turned. Jake, her ex, standing in the restaurant like a ghost from her pre-Carter past. Tall, smug, wearing that same unearned confidence he always carried like cologne. "Jake," she said, stunned. "What are you doing here?" "I work with one of the investors. I didn't know you'd be here." His eyes flicked to Liam. "I see you've upgraded. Tall, brooding, looks expensive." Liam stepped forward, extending a hand. "Liam Carter, CEO." Jake hesitated, shook his hand. "Of course, the infamous Mr. Carter." Liam's voice didn't waver. "And you are?" "An old friend," Jake said too quickly. "We go way back." Emily said nothing. "Well," Jake added awkwardly, "great seeing you, Em." "You look incredible," she nodded. "Thanks." Jake left, and the air shifted again. "I'm sorry," Emily said. "That was unexpected." "You don't have to explain. I feel like I should." "You don't, but now I understand a few things." Emily blinked. "Like what?" Why you hesitate? Why you brace yourself for the worst? She didn't answer. Tonight, he said quietly, I didn't want to be anywhere but here. With you. Her heart skipped. You've thrown me off balance, Emily. Out of logic. Out of comfort. She opened her mouth to respond, but Sophie burst through the back door like a sitcom character. They're calling everyone to the dance floor. Partner dance. Company tradition. Go, Emily groaned. I don't dance. I don't usually stay, Liam said. But maybe tonight's an exception. He offered his hand. She took it. On the dance floor, the lights dimmed, music slowed, and the world faded. Their movements were hesitant at first, but then something clicked. You know what happens tomorrow? She whispered. Gossip, screenshots, memes. And you're okay with that? I'm asking you out anyway, she smiled. As Liam, not the CEO? He nodded. And you'll say yes? As Emily, not the assistant. They danced in silence, surrounded by the buzz of coworkers, but lost in their own rhythm. It wasn't a strategy. It wasn't a trap. It was something real. And it was just beginning. The Monday after the gala dinner was supposed to feel like the start of something magical. It didn't. Instead, it felt like someone had thrown a corporate blanket over everything, gray, sterile, and silent. Emily walked into the office expecting glances, whispers, maybe even one of those awkward, "So, what was that?" conversations in the break room. But what she wasn't ready for was Liam Carter acting like nothing had happened. No nod, no smirk, no secret smile meant just for her. He passed by her desk that morning, coffee in hand, perfectly pressed suit, eyes blank. He said, "Morning," with the warmth of a voicemail recording. Emily sat down at her desk and stared at her keyboard, like it had betrayed her. He's different, Sophie whispered later. Like, emotionally vaccinated. Emily gave a small nod, eyes still fixed on her screen. I think he's avoiding me. He danced with you at the company party, Emily. He practically proposed with his eyes. I know. And now I'm the janitor in his mind. Next week he'll forget my name and ask where the temp is. Sophie frowned. This doesn't sound like him. He's not the kind of guy to retreat. Then maybe I imagined the whole thing, Emily muttered. But she hadn't. She knew what she felt when they danced, and more importantly, what she saw in his eyes before Sophie dragged them to the floor. Fear. Real, human fear. The next few days passed in a haze. Liam still attended meetings, still answered emails with laser-sharp clarity, still moved like he belonged in a suit catalog. But now there was something hollow behind his eyes, like someone had muted the soundtrack playing in his mind. To Emily, the silence between them was louder than anything else. She received no messages, no tasks, no coffee machine missions. The inside jokes dried up. Even her inbox had been scrubbed clean of his late-night "need you for this" one-liners. On Thursday, she decided she couldn't take it anymore. She marched up to his office, folder in hand, and knocked. Twice. Firm. Come in, came his voice. She stepped in. Liam didn't look up. I brought the project report, ahead of schedule. Leave it on the desk. She placed the folder down. Her heart thudded. Mr. Carter, she said deliberately, using the title like a weapon. He finally looked up, his expression unreadable. Yes? What's going on? With what? She exhaled, frustrated. The dinner, the dance, the you asking me out, was that some kind of corporate hallucination? His jaw tensed. It was a moment. Outside protocol. Emily stared at him, searching for something real in his face. Do you regret it? Silence. That's what I thought, she said softly, turning toward the door. But before she left, she paused. You know what the worst part is, Liam? It wasn't the moment. It was everything after. Pretending it didn't happen. That's what hurts. He said nothing. Emily left, holding it together just long enough to close the door behind her. That night, as she sat at her kitchen table trying to forget the way his hand had rested on her lower back during their dance. She heard a buzz. Her phone lit up. A message from Sophie, envelope on your desk, black, from him. Emily stared at the screen, then at the wall, then back. The next morning, she arrived at work early. Her desk was still quiet, still untouched. But there it was, a small black envelope with her name written in precise, elegant handwriting. Inside was a letter. Emily, if I seem distant, it's not because I don't care, it's because I do. You caught me off guard. That doesn't happen often. You made me laugh on a day I thought I'd forgotten how. You challenged me when everyone else just agreed. You reminded me what it feels like to feel. But I'm not good at this. I'm good at logic, at numbers, at risk assessment. And you, Emily, are none of those things. You are unpredictable, emotional, maddening, and kind. And that terrifies me. I'm not avoiding you. I'm trying to protect you. Because people like me ruin people like you. Elsie, Emily stared at the words until they blurred. Then she folded the letter carefully and slipped it into her bag. She didn't cry, didn't pace, didn't even tell Sophie. She just worked. For the next few days, Emily did her job with military-level precision. She replied to every email within 15 minutes. She attended meetings early. She wore neutral outfits and kept her expressions polite, professional, and perfectly unreadable. If Liam noticed, he said nothing. Until Friday. That afternoon, Sophie dropped another envelope on her desk. From Carter's office, she said. Emily looked at the front. Gold embossed, thick paper, elegant design. Inside, an invitation. End of cycle dinner. In honor of outstanding contributors. Guest of honor, Emily Parker. Location, Langston's Restaurant Time, 8 p.m., LC. She stared at it. I'm a temp, she whispered. No, Sophie said gently. You're the spark that turned this place into something real. Emily looked down at the letter again. She had a choice to make. She could avoid him like he had avoided her, or she could show up. Because maybe, just maybe, he wasn't trying to close the door. Maybe he was trying to open it. Langston's was bathed in soft gold light, like the inside of a snow globe meant for elegant endings. Its glass walls overlooked the New York skyline, and the room was filled with the hum of careful conversations and clinking silverware. For everyone else, it was the end-of-cycle dinner, the usual closing event with polite speeches and handshakes. For Emily Parker, it was a question. A silent, lingering why. Why had Liam Carter invited her after retreating? Why had he written that letter, then gone quiet again? Why now? She entered the restaurant in a simple dress. No bold lipstick, no penguin socks, just her, and a tight knot in her chest. Sophie met her near the entrance with 2 glasses of water and a look that said she'd memorized 5 different exit strategies. He's not here yet, she whispered. Or he's doing the CEO thing where he stands in the shadows until it's time for drama. Emily nodded, distracted. Maybe this was a mistake? No. You showing up was the moment he lost control again. That's why he's hiding. Minutes later, the host took the stage. The usual introductions rolled by. Numbers, reports, thanks, applause. And then, tonight, the host said, we want to recognize someone who reminded this company what authenticity looks like. The kind of spark that turns routine into story. Please welcome our guest of honor, Emily Parker. Applause erupted like a wave. Her name echoed. And for the first time, it felt like she belonged. Emily's legs shook as she walked to the stage. The lights were too bright, her breath too shallow. She took the mic as if it might bite her. Hi, she began. I really didn't expect this. A laugh from the audience. That helped. I thought this job was going to be a temporary line on my resume. Something between coffee runs and calendar reminders. But then I got into the wrong car. Laughter again. And I gave a stranger directions. I told him about my socks. And a croissant that was so expensive I still think about it. More laughter. But I didn't know that stranger would become my boss. Or that I'd become the person who accidentally launched an internal campaign, broke a printer with her shirt, and tripped over a plant during a meeting. Now they were laughing and clapping. I don't know where this road leads, but I know I'm grateful I took that wrong turn, because sometimes the most ridiculous mistake is the one that gets you on the right path. Thunderous applause. She smiled, handed off the mic, and hurried off the stage, only to trip slightly on the final step. Not a full fall, just enough to let out a tiny squeak. Everyone gasped, then laughed. Emily turned back with a sheepish grin. It was a fake plant. The room roared. Someone caught her elbow gently. She turned. Liam. He helped her up, his eyes filled with something that looked like actual emotion. You have a gift for making an impact. She exhaled. Hire me as your corporate comedian. He didn't let go of her hand. I almost lost you twice, he said. Emily froze. Liam. Once, the day you got into my car, and again, when you walked out of my office after I shut the door on something that scared me. She searched his face. And now? Now I'm here, because I don't want to lose you a third time. Her heart was pounding so loud, she could barely hear the jazz music in the background. I was afraid, he continued. Afraid of what people would say. Afraid of risking what I built. But you reminded me that logic, without feeling, isn't strength. It's just survival. I didn't need saving, she whispered. I know, he said. But I think I did. He took her hand again. Come with me. Upstairs, the rooftop was quiet. Strung lights swayed in the soft breeze, casting golden halos on the concrete floor. A small table with 2 glasses sat in the center, petals scattered like someone had been nervous arranging them. She turned to him, eyebrows lifted. Is this a speech trap? It's a pause, he said. A moment outside protocol. He pulled a box from his pocket. Emily froze. I'm not the easiest man, Liam said. I get things wrong. I hide when I should fight. I overthink. And I don't dance unless someone forces me. But with you I've laughed harder, worked better, and seen color where I used to only see numbers. He opened the box. Inside was a simple ring. Elegant. Classic. Her. Emily Parker. Will you keep making the wrong turns with me? For a long time. Tears welled in her eyes. Only if we never buy that croissant again, she whispered. He smiled. Deal. She nodded. Yes, absolutely yes. He slipped the ring on her finger. She pulled him into a hug. I'm not calling you Mr. Carter anymore, she murmured. Thank God. They stood under the lights, quiet, peaceful, real. The wedding was held on the same rooftop. No drama, no press releases, just a handful of friends, bad dancing, good cake, and decorations that included tiny fake plants and hand-drawn croissant menus. Sophie cried before the ceremony even started. Liam wore a light blue tie embroidered with a miniature penguin. Emily walked down the aisle in soft fabric and sneakers, because she said heels were for enemies and corporate banquets. Their vows were filled with laughter. I promised to check the license plate before getting in the car, she said. And I promise to never let you reorganize my spreadsheets, he replied. When they kissed, someone released confetti a beat too early. It was perfect. Later, as the sun set behind the skyline, they leaned on the railing together. You really thought I was your Uber, he said. I really did. He shook his head, smiling. And now, look where we are. Emily leaned her head on his shoulder. The right car, the right heart, she whispered. And they stood like that, wrapped in string lights and each other, quietly grateful for the craziest mistake they'd ever made.